For my project, I learned how to sculpt in Blender. This is where you can download Blender, just blender.org. Then there's the Blender 2.80 button. Blender 2.80 is the most recent update. A lot of things have been updated since the last Blender 2.79, and they're completely different to learn. So you can download that. I've already done it, so it doesn't really do anything if I download it again, but you can pick which one you want. I have a Mac, so I'd pick that, and then download it. I've already done that, and I can find it in Launchpad right here. And this is my project that I did. I did a person. I mostly did sculpting, which is, I'll get to that. But I also used some particle systems for the hair, which I will do a little bit of as well. So this is what Blender looks like when you open it for the first time. In front here you can see this screen. It just pulls up every time you open Blender. You can click anywhere to get rid of it. And then you have this screen. There's the default cube here. There's the origin, which is where if you add new meshes, they're called, to the screen, that's where they'll start. And then over here you have a light, and over here there's the camera, which you can look through by clicking this button, and then you can see what your object looks like through the camera. So first we can delete the default cube by clicking X, and then it'll ask if you really want to delete it. You will say delete, and then in order to add a new mesh, you can click Add Mesh, and then you can pick which mesh you want. You can do a plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, or torus. We will do a UV sphere. And once you add the sphere, over here you can see the Add UV Sphere, and you can change the resolution of it. You can add segments and rings, make it larger, change its location, move it around. And the X, Y, and Z axes, which since it is a 3D screen, you'll have all three of those. And once you click away from the sphere and click back, that's gone. You can move around your object. You can see where you are here. You have the Y, the X, and the Z, and you can click these to see it from different angles. So you can see it from there, and you can see it from there. This is the Layout tab. But you can go to other tabs. You can go to the Modeling tab, or you can go to the Sculpting tab, any of these tabs, but I spent the most time in the Sculpting tab. So here in the Sculpting tab, there's all these brushes along the left-hand side. The most useful brush I found was the snake hook brush. But when you start pulling away stuff, you can see a couple of things. First, it's mirrored. When you first open it up, the automatic is for it to be mirrored, which I find very useful, but you can turn it off if you want. And you have all these tabs, and here's the mirror tab, so you can change the mirror, or you can just turn it off entirely, in which case it only happens on one side. But the other thing you can notice is that it keeps the same amount of vertices. These points, you can see them here, all these vertices where they connect. It doesn't add more vertices when you use the brushes. So your object will never get more detail on it. But you can turn that off by clicking Dyn Topo. And then, Command Z it. And then when you pull away, you can see that it adds more vertexes to your data object. So if you go along the brushes, the draw brush, that's just kind of, drawing along the image, the object. It's pretty simple. You can add things that way. The clay brush just kind of lumps it up there. It's kind of similar to the draw brush, but not entirely. lay strips. I will admit I did not spend a lot of time on these top few buttons. The main ones I spent were draw, inflate, which just kind of pulls it out there without affecting anything else. Crease, which doesn't really do a whole lot, but it kind of, creases. It's kind of helpful when making mouths. You can kind of make a little mouth on this person. And then you can crease there. But the most helpful brush, well, pinch is pretty helpful, but the most helpful brush is the snake hook brush, like I said before. So with the snake hook brush, we have our object here, and we can begin making it into a head. You press F if you want to change the size of your brush, and then you can just pull out or push in until you get a good size. I discovered that you want to have a larger brush than you think you need to have to work with it, and then you can kind of just pull out. If you want to undo something, just click Command Z and it'll undo it. It's pretty simple. And you want to keep rotating around your object as you're working on it. And let's see, I don't really want that blob there right now. But if I hit Command Z, then I'll delete some of the other helpful stuff I have. We can use the smooth brush. I honestly don't know where it is in this thing because it's the best way to get to the smooth brush is by pressing Shift, and then your brush changes from the snake hook brush to the smooth brush. That's a little much though, so we can make our brush smaller and we can smooth just this area. Just Shift, you can smooth. And then when you go back, it's the snake hook brush again. Make our brush bigger. Once you've got a simple kind of egg head, you would want to spend obviously a lot more time on this. This is very low resolution, which you can turn up by going to the detail size, and you can up that, or that goes up really slowly. The size I spent most of the time on my project was at 20, not the default 12. But when I was done, I upped it and I went to 30 for some finer details. The higher you go with these pixel detail size, the harder it'll be for your computer to run it. So I kept it as low pixel size as I could to work cleanly with it. But for now, this is just simple to show how to sculpt and all of that. So here's our egg head, and we want to add some hair to it. So what we would want to do, we'll use the particle systems for this. We can go to layout first, and we can see our person in the layout tab. He's white now, and sculpting he's kind of a reddish, and that's just to make it easier for the sculpting to happen. So there's particles here, and we can add a particle system, and then we can hit hair. But the problem with this is it's kind of crazy and it's all over his head. We can change the hair dynamics, but first we want to limit this hair to just part of his head. So we can do that, but let's get rid of this first. So what we want to do, if we're going to do that, is we'll go to Object Data, and here we can add a vertex group. So you can click plus. We can name this anything we want. I'm going to name it hair. And what we do when we're in the vertex groups is we can switch over here from object mode to weight paint. And see, that kind of turns him a bluish color. And when we paint on him, it kind of goes to a red. So what we're going to do is we're just going to paint where we want his hair to be. Paint along here. The same way with sculpting, we can change the brush size, make it a little bit easier to paint all the way around. There we go. That can be his hair. He's a pretty person. So then we can have this vertex group here. We'll go back to object mode, and when we go back to particles, we can add our hair again. It's all over again. But we can go here and we can click hair on density and vertex groups, which is what we made. We made a vertex group, and it's only an area we selected. And then we can go up and we can change the statistics of the hair. In children here, we can add interpolated children, and that adds just a ton more hair to the process. We can make it shorter. It's kind of long, so why don't we make it still a little long, maybe that's a little better. If we want to get any further with this, we can click Advanced, and then that adds a whole lot of stuff for us to do. Here's the velocity. It's just a lot of how you want it to behave in the world. These three, bounty and drag and damp, those are pretty useful for making your hair look nice. If I add one there, it gets all crazy. Drag, doesn't do a whole lot, but that makes it huge. I mean, look at that. You do not want one on damp unless your hair is minuscule. Even then, it seems a little crazy. See how that looks. I don't even know where he is. There he is. There we go. Still rather large, but a lot smaller. So you can just mess around with these things and anything else you can find in here. Render. This is useful for when you're going back in and doing stuff with the head and you don't want this hair messing around with you. You can click Render as Path and change that to None, and it's gone. Now, Path. So here's our little eggplant man. If we want to delete him, we can just click on him and click X, but I like him. Also did some things with cloth physics. And if we want to add cloth physics, first we can add mesh, plane. We can move things around here. We can use the move, and then we can use these arrows to move something over. We can rotate it, flip it around, move it all around. We can scale it up or scale it down, bigger and smaller. Transform, that allows you to do everything. You can move it around, you can rotate it, or you can, rotate it. You can scale it. If I can grab the little scale, if I can grab little scale bars, there we go. It's much easier to use these three. And if you want to move it, use the arrows, because if you're just moving it blindly, you have these 3 dimensions here. You can see 2 dimensions, but you can't see the third. So you don't really know where it actually is in relation. I mean, here I got lucky and it's still kind of where I thought it was. But if I want to put it like on that green line, I can't do that from here. I can try and do it, but you never know where it's actually going to be. So using the arrows, it's just a lot simpler. But if I want to add a cloth animation to this, first I would need to add a modifier. All these modifiers do all kinds of different things, but what I'm going to use is subdivision surface. So what that does is it just ups the resolution, really. Kind of takes that shape now. And then you can go to the physics tab, and you can see all of these. You can add cloth. And now, if I click the play button, it would act like cloth, but also it would fall because there's nothing there to support it. But what I can do, so something will support it, is I can make this head support it. I can click collision here, and now the head will not let the cloth go through it. See, it looks like it's right in front of it from some views, but really isn't. So now it's on top of my head. When I click play, it'll fall, and then it'll kind of do that. This animation runs a lot more cleanly than my other animation in my thing, because I just have a cloak And yeah, this is how you save. I can just save this Eggman. And you can save it, you know, just like anything else, save it to desktop. This is my project, and as you can see, this cloak is very large. If I go into modeling, I can see all the different vertices of it. It's very complex. There's lots of different parts to it, which makes sense since, you know, it is a cloak. But if I want to play this animation, yeah, my computer doesn't really like it. I can play it. It just struggles. Anyway, that's kind of the majority of what I went through.